The slide should change. It stopped working. Just give her a cue and she'll change it for you.
Okay, so hi, my name is Jeremy Manning. We're going to be talking about CPR. So, in the summer of 2013, I was working on my job, and there was an accident where an employer was electrocuted. Fortunately, myself and a couple other people around, though, we had all been trained in CPR. So we began assessing the situation, and we found no pulse. So we all took turns in administering CPR. And luckily, my coworker is still working, and he's alive today. So I'm going to be talking about CPR today. In an article posted by Fox News in 2013, researchers said that of the 300,000 people in the U.S. that go into cardiac arrest every year, 90% of those don't live. But if CPR was started immediately, those individuals would have been 2 to 3 times more likely to have survived. Although CPR might sound difficult, it's a very simple act that can save a person's life. By learning how to perform chest compressions, rescue breathing, and learning some of the do's and don'ts of CPR, that statistic can be substantially lowered. So first off, I'm going to talk about chest compressions. Chest compressions are the most important part of CPR because you are pushing oxygen-rich blood into the person's organs and keeping them alive. But before we can begin, we first need to establish correct hand placement. So first, perform proper CPR. You put the heel of your hand in the center of the chest along where the breast comes at. Next, you put your other hand on top and interlace your fingers. Next, you're going to lock your hands out, your arms out completely, and directly over the person's chest. The next step is to actually begin chest compressions. So we're going to get chest compressions at a rate of 100 compressions a minute. For every compression we do, we'll be pushing down 2 inches into their chest. We keep our arms locked the entire time. Next, we'll perform 30 whole compressions before we move on to the next step. So now that I've talked about compressions, for CPR to be more effective, we also need to include rescue breathing. Rescue breaths will increase the chance of survival by stimulating the body to breathe again. Before we can administer rescue breaths, though, we first need to make sure that the airway is open so as not to lodge anything farther in there. To do that, we will use the head tilt chin lift method. For that, you put one hand on their forehead and 2 fingers underneath their chin. You then push down on the forehead and lift up on the chin, rocking the head back and opening up the airway. Now that the airway is open, you need to visually inspect that there's no obstruction in the airway. And if there is, then you will remove that. Next, you will perform the actual rescue breathing. You will be giving a total of 2 breaths into the person's mouth immediately after the compressions. The amount of air that you're breathing into the person is a normal sized breath. A lot of people think that just push a bunch of oxygen in there and that'll do the trick. But all it takes is actually a normal sized breath. You will then continue the cycle by going back to chest compressions. And you will continue this whole cycle until the person is revived. Lastly, I will be discussing some of the do's and don'ts of CPR. While performing CPR, there are some things to watch out for. While performing rescue breathing, like I said earlier, people have a tendency of pushing a lot of air into the person. What that can do is force air down in their stomach. By forcing air down in their stomach, that can cause a person to vomit and close up their airway. If that does happen, you clean out the airway and you continue CPR. One thing that we do want to continue doing, though, according to Medline Plus, is continue CPR at all possible. So do not stop. Performing CPR is hard physically, and it does take a lot out of you. Most people actually can't even last 5 minutes doing it. If that happens, switching out with someone is the best way to continue. You can split the tasks so both of you don't get exhausted. If you are the only one person, though, you do need to continue doing CPR. Just imagine if you were doing CPR on your child, or a grandparent, or a family member of some kind. You would be doing as much as you can to make sure that they live, and that's exactly how you need to treat every situation. The last part is you want to continue CPR and normally have the other person call for an ambulance. Like I said, continue CPR until the ambulance arrives and then they'll take over from there. So CPR really is a very easy step in the process of saving a whole person's life. My coworker was very fortunate to be alive, and that's all due to us knowing CPR. Unfortunately, though, there are a lot of other people out there that do not survive cardiac arrest. And that's not because people gave CPR and they didn't know what they were doing. That's because no one was there to administer any type of support. By performing chest compressions, rescue breathing, and being aware of some of the do's and don'ts of CPR, you can potentially give a person, whoever that may